Now let's look into the installation of a Docker desktop before we jump into installation of Docker engine in Linux. First we see how to install Docker desktop in Windows machine, then we'll go for the other one. For that we will get two things are required. One is Docker desktop, other one is WSL. So let us get into the documentation of Docker desktop. So I click Docker desktop for Windows. Install on Windows. So this is our documentation of Docker desktop. You see Docker desktop documentation on Windows. Let's go through it first and then we will begin installation of the same. So it says welcome to a Docker desktop for Windows. This page contains information about Docker desktop for Windows system requirements. That's fine. And this is where we have to download the Docker file. Sorry, Docker desktop .exe file, the binary file. So let me download this first. Click on this link. So it's getting downloaded. It's 594 MB. It's gonna take more time. So by the time we will go through the documentation of installation process of Docker desktop. So system requirements, as I told you, you must have either WSL2 backend or Hyper-V backend and Windows container, whichever it may be. So we will go with the first option, that is WSL2. So in addition to that, Windows 11 64-bit for this Home Pro version, Windows 10 64-bit, and all it compatible with all those things. Then the common requirements: 64-bit processor with the second level address translation, that's a SLAT, and 4 GB system RAM minimum, and BIOS level hardware virtualization support must be enabled in the BIOS. This is very important. This is very important. BIOS level hardware virtualization, when you restart you can find this uh, virtualization support must be enabled in the BIOS settings. Okay, then we have about Windows containers and install Docker desktop on Windows. This is the process. Let's go through the procedure once. Just double click on Docker desktop installer.exe .exe file. Then once we double click on it, runs the installer. So the installation process starts. So then basically you can install your application. Once that is done, when prompted, ensure the use WSL2 instead of Hyper-V option in the configuration page is selected or not, depending on your choice backend. So we'll go for the WSL2 only. And then from the instructions on the installation wizard, to authorize the installer and proceed with the install. So when the installation is successful, click OK to complete the installation process, and the rest all remains same. This step we are going to look into this. So our .exe file of Docker desktop has been downloaded. Let's get into the downloads and we will install. But before that, you can see installation from command line. In spite of downloading the .exe file and installing it manually, you can do it through command line and PowerShell also. So for the command line, this is the um, commands that we have to use. Okay, so we will see this step once the installation is done. For now, let's get into the .exe file of that folder. So do you want to allow this app to make changes to your device? Yes, of course. So it's getting installed. This is our Docker desktop installer. So configuration, I say okay. The shortcut, it's about shortcut. So now it's getting installed. Now it's unpacking the files because normally a .exe file, .exe or whatever the package it could be. So the source code will be built and then it will be made into package. So now when you install an application into your local machine means you'll unpack it, and after the unpacking, so you will basically place all the files which are there inside the package in your directory so that you can use that application. That's what an installation means. Okay, installation succeeded. So let me click close, and let's get into the Docker desktop. Here it is. So let me open run as administrator. So I'll click here. Yeah, I'm just waiting for it to respond. So Docker subscription service agreement. Okay, fully accept. You just go through the full agreement before you accept, because I have gone through it. So that's the reason. Yeah. So Docker subscription service agreement, I'll accept it. Okay. So it's up. Docker desktop requires a new year WSL kernel version. So for that, update the WSL kernel by running this. So let's use this, copy this. Let's keep this one same, and let's look into the WS first whether we have it or not. So Windows PowerShell, run as administrator, and I'll keep this up, and I'll clear the screen. No, I don't need. Let me paste it. So installing, do you want to allow this app to make? Yes. So installing Windows subsystem for Linux. Let's wait. So Windows subsystem for Linux has been installed. And one more thing is, if you do not have a Windows subsystem Linux, so either you can use these commands, or you can just simply go to your Microsoft Store. Let me quit here and type WSL2 or WSL, and then click on apps, and just scroll down. You will see Ubuntu here. That's Windows subsystem for Linux. Of course, you can see that it's installed. So it's been installed. So I have installed it. So you can install it either using command line interface CLI, or you can use a user interface of Microsoft Store, whichever is easy for you, just follow that. But installation of WSL2 is pretty much important. So Windows subsystem for Linux has been updated, and we have that. So now let's get into the Docker and we'll see what's the condition there. So Docker desktop is getting started. Docker desktop is starting. Let's wait. So here there is no red. So now, yeah, it's green. It's asking to get started with Docker in few steps. Let's do it. So first clone a repository, and then Docker run. So clone, build, cd getting started, Docker build, and then after build, run or spin the container, run your first container and share it. Pretty uh, nice documentation, a nice way to getting started, because you are covering all. So you'll begin with the cloning the repository where you have your Docker image, and after that we have to getting you have to build your image, then you have to run the container, and you have to share it with the Docker Hub. Okay, we'll go there, but before that okay, let's do that. Let's clone it. Okay, yeah, you see that image is being pulled here. So cloning that getting started. So done. So let me do ls. Mhm. List. That's okay. So then after that we're gonna build Docker build option T Docker 101. So the image has been built. Oh, there are a lot of steps, huh? Nice. Okay, let's wait for that. Then just click here, and you can run your container But finally, if you want to share, you can see that all the tick marks are done till we have run it. Now if you want to share this container, so what we have to do is we have to sign into our GitHub account before you want to share. So let me get into that place now. We will sign into our GitHub account. Yes, it's done. So it's verifying credential. You just click success. You are now signed in. You can see that this is my account. That's a Cube Charan account. So let me click on done and see your repo Alpine Git container is in exited state. That's a different issue. But you just run the, you can see that your image is here and your container is here. So let me delete this container. Let me clean up, and images also not required. Let me clean up, and volumes, no volumes. So that's how you install your Docker desktop using WSL2 as a support, as a backend, and after that you will configure to your Docker Hub account to push your images or to store your images, to share your images that you have built uh, to everyone. So we use a Docker Hub. So we'll configure the Docker Hub with our Docker desktop.